All right, today we're jumping into a really short but incredibly powerful and surprisingly funny argument that started as a TED Talk and then became this essential modern essay. I'm talking about Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's We Should All Be Feminists. And her whole case really kicks off with just a single, very loaded word. You know, Adichie's first real encounter with this word was with her childhood friend Okoloma. They were having one of those big arguments that brilliant kids have. And he just points at her and says, "You know, you're a feminist." But the way he said it, it wasn't a compliment. It was an accusation. It landed with the same weight as if he'd called her a terrorist. And that one moment planted this question in her mind. What is so bad about being a feminist? And that experience, right there, it gets to the heart of the problem Adichie is tackling. Why is this word so heavy? Why does it come with all this negative baggage that lets people use it as an insult?
And it wasn't just a thing from her childhood friend. Years down the road, a Nigerian journalist pulls her aside and gives her some, friendly advice. Don't ever call yourself a feminist. And when she asks why, he explains that, well, everyone knows feminists are just these unhappy women who can't find husbands.
And the pushback even came from other women. A Nigerian academic told her that feminism just isn't part of our culture, that it's some foreign, un-African idea that Adichie must have picked up from reading Western books. It was treated like this cheap import, not something authentic to who she was. So this is where it gets pretty funny. Adichie starts, sort of tongue-in-cheek, modifying her own title to fight back against every single stereotype. So she's not unhappy? Fine. She's a happy feminist. She's not un-African? Okay, then she's a happy African feminist. Oh, and she hates men? Nope. She's a happy African feminist who does not hate men. And it just keeps going. This escalating, kind of ridiculous title just perfectly captures all the layers of nonsense she had to deal with just to use the word.
But here's the thing. This isn't really just about a word. Adichie shows how this bias isn't just theoretical. It moves from language into real, actual experiences. She argues that this inequality, it shows up in all these small, everyday moments that just sting.
So take this story from when she was 9 years old. Her teacher makes a promise to the class. Whoever gets the highest score on a test will get to be class monitor. And for a kid, this is a huge deal. Adichie, she wants it. She studies like crazy for it, and she aces it. She gets the highest score in the class.
But then, the teacher, genuinely surprised, says, "Oh, I forgot to mention, the monitor has to be a boy." It was just an assumption. So the job went to the boy with the second highest score. For the teacher, Adichie's talent and hard work didn't matter. Her gender was the only thing that did.
And here's where this huge idea just clicks into place for her. If we do something over and over and over again, it just becomes normal, right? If we only ever see boys being class monitors or men as CEOs, our brains start to accept that as the natural way of things, even if it makes no sense. Repetition literally creates our reality. And that lesson she learned as a kid just keeps playing out. Years later, she's in Lagos, and she tips a parking attendant. The guy takes the money right out of her hand, looks past her, turns to her male friend, and says, "Thank you, sir." The assumption was just so clear. Any money she had couldn't really be hers. It had to have come from the man she was with. This kind of bias, of course, absolutely infects the professional world. Adichie tells this story about a female friend of hers who took over a manager role from a man. Now, when he was in charge, he was praised for being a tough go-getter. But when she did the exact same things, she was called aggressive and difficult. The behavior was identical. The only thing that changed the perception was gender. So all these little stories, they all build up to a much bigger point. This isn't just a woman's problem. Adichie argues that these rigid scripts we write for gender are harmful to everyone. They put both boys and girls into these really narrow, restrictive cages. And she has this really powerful metaphor for it. She says we raise boys inside what she calls a hard, small cage of masculinity. We teach them that they have to be afraid of fear. They have to hide any weakness. They have to constantly perform this tough guy act. And the result, she says, is that we end up with men who have very fragile egos. And what about girls? Well, we teach them to manage those fragile male egos. We teach them to shrink themselves. You know the messages. Have ambition, but, not too much. Be successful, but not so successful that you might, threaten a man. And if you happen to be the one making more money, you better pretend that you're not. Basically, make yourself small. I mean, just think about how we talk about marriage. We raise girls to see marriage as this huge life achievement. It's something you're supposed to aspire to. But we don't really teach boys the same thing. And what you get is this massive difference in expectations. A woman who's unmarried by a certain age is often seen as some kind of failure. A man, he's just taking his time.
Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the solution? Adichie's argument isn't just about pointing out what's wrong. It's really about imagining and then building a better, fairer world. And it all starts with taking back that word. Remember back at the beginning how her friend used feminists like an insult? Well, after peeling back all those stereotypes and all that baggage, Adichie finally just looked up the word in the dictionary, and this is what it said. A person who believes in the social, political, and economic equality of the sexes. That's it. It's really that simple.
But then Adichie offers her own definition, which I think is even better. It's less about just passively believing something and more about taking action. To her, a feminist is any man or woman who looks around and says, yes, there is a problem with gender as it is today, and we must fix it. We have to do better. It's an open invitation. Everyone is welcome to join in.
So what does that actually look like? Well, it can start with something really small. A family might tell their daughter to go cook for her brother. But what if instead they just taught both of their kids the really useful life skill of cooking? You see how the focus shifts? It goes from performing a gender role to just learning a practical ability.
And this really brings us to the core of her vision and the final question she leaves us with. What if we just got rid of those heavy, suffocating cages of gender? What if, when we're raising our kids, we focus not on what box they're supposed to fit into, but on their individual abilities, their unique talents, their full humanity? Just imagine how much happier and how much freer all of us would be.